Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming out. You're all very welcome. Tonight we are joined by Carol Malone, aka FP. I was going to say FBI there. FPI. She's a forensic paranormal investigator. She's having issues with her camera, so that's why she's not up on the screen. But she is there, and body and soul. So thanks very much for coming in, Carol.
Oh no, thank you for having me.
I know we spoke last week. It was quite an interesting chat, so I'm looking forward to tonight because I know you've got some quite interesting stories to tell us. So you're a forensic paranormal investigator.
I am. Above all, I am a scientist. I decided back in 2010 when my son was murdered, that I knew that, the dead had a voice. I'm a mortician too. So I firmly believe the dead have a voice. So I started incorporating forensic science into the paranormal and was able to come up with some astronomical evidence that just cannot be torn apart. Mm-hmm. So I started incorporating forensic science into the field of the paranormal.
So, you've got a paranormal investigation, which we've all done. Mm-hmm. How does a forensic investigation differ from your kind of average normal investigation? What's the difference?
Well, absolutely. We don't want to know anything about the building except for the story. We don't want to know where somebody supposedly passed away. I don't let my team know anything about that. Mm-hmm. What we do is we go ahead, and we've all heard those really cool stories with these haunted locations. For instance, Great Aunt Thelma went to a wayward married mother's home when she was pregnant back in the 40s. And when they took her baby, she just couldn't live with herself, so she killed herself in the upstairs bathroom. And now she wanders the hall looking for her baby. We've all heard those stories. And that's a phenomenal paranormal story. But first, we have to either prove or deny that it took place before we can prove or deny a haunting. Because without proving or denying that it actually took place, the haunting is just a story. So what we do is we go in and our researchers dig deep. We want to know if there was ever was an Aunt Mary. Once we find all the documents on that, we go full CSI on the building. If there's blood there, we're going to find it. We've done it on many locations. We can pull blood up to 200 years. So we go in and we see if there's even blood where they said Great Aunt Mary took her own life. And then we use what's called a decap. Now, decap can tell if it's human or animal blood. Mm-hmm. And then we do a full-on paranormal investigation. And we use all three of those scenarios in order to prove or deny a haunting. Mm-hmm. Well, what people call a haunting. Because you can rip apart the paranormal field all day long. Everybody does. You cannot rip apart forensic science. You just can't. We put people in jail over that. It's pretty cut and dry. It's either there or it's not. So we definitely hit it with the three-prong attack. So kind of picture CSI meet the paranormal field, I guess.
And I mean, as you say, you get all these stories. We did an investigation, I think it was March, a place in England called the Ivy House. It's also known as the Demon House. And there was a story attached to that there was a doctor who murdered his wife in the house and cut her up in the bathtub. Funnily enough, you mentioned bathtub. He was meant to have chopped her up in the bathtub. So this story, everybody knows the story, but seemingly there's no truth to it. It's one of these stories that was made up, whether it was just to maybe enhance the reputation of the house or, whatever. But seemingly that story's not true.
Oh yeah.
And as you say,
You know,
if you
you guys have. You were telling me the story of a gentleman that they actually had named, and that wasn't his name. But
Mhm.
people are still going around looking for him today.
Aye, the Mackenzie poltergeist.
Yes, I think
Yeah,
that's absolutely fascinating.
it's how would you describe it? It's nuts. You know
Aye, it really is. The whole story was made up in a book. Well, the story was obviously the attacks and stuff are real, but the name was kind of given because the writer had to give this entity a name, and that's why it's called the Mackenzie Poltergeist.
hmm the thing is that the attacks. There's over 3,000 reported attacks, and it's in Greyfriars prison. Greyfriars Kirkyard. And Greyfriars Kirkyard, you've got the actual Kirkyard, and you've got the Covenanters prison, which is separate. It's attached to it, but there's a gate locks it. The attacks happened in the Covenanters prison, whereas this guy Mackenzie is buried in the Kirkyard. So he's nowhere near the prison. But, you know, the author of the books thought, you know, well, George Mackenzie's buried nearby. So I'm just going to I'll call it the Mackenzie poltergeist.
But I think as well it's because every time the Mackenzie tomb's been broken into twice. The first time was the homeless man, and the second was the young boys who stole the head and played football with it.
Mhm.
So every time that something happens at the Mackenzie, at George Mackenzie's tomb, the activity seems to ramp up, and the Covenanters, whether it's connected or not, nobody knows.
And
But-
see, that's the human consciousness coming into play. Sometimes people want so much to believe that there's an afterlife because we all, let's face it, everybody out there wants to know what's next. You know, it's a normal human curiosity. So I think what they do is the mind starts to put puzzle pieces together that necessarily should not be in that particular puzzle. So what they do is they end up with this persona that takes on its own urban legend.
Aye, it becomes a hey Facebook user. As you say, you know, everybody wants to know what's on the other side of the door, as I call it. You know, is there something there? As I know, I think there's far too much evidence to deny the existence of an afterlife. You know,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We in science are coming leaps and bounds. You know, it's actually fascinating because before too long, in the past, sorry, you know, people were saying that the body was subject to the same set of scientific laws as the consciousness. We
Mhm.
know in science that is not true anymore. Um, we also know in science that the multiverses does indeed exist.
I mean, we were talking last week. You were talking about the multiverse and what have you. Again, what exactly, you know, is that for people that are watching?
I'm sorry.
The multi the uh, my words are away tonight, isn't they? My words are the multiverse.
Yes, the multiverse theory, or for short, the M theory.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Hawking has absolutely proven that there are 10 multiverses, 10 different, what people call universes. And that's because science and the paranormal use very different terms. But we know for a fact that the closest multiverse or realm, I guess, there is so much scientifically documented evidence on the M theory that multiverses do indeed exist. Now, if you think about it, if our closest realm is what's classified as the mirrored realm, correct? That would mean that, for instance, when people have interactions with doppelgangers, we're going to say doppelgangers because a lot of people just know. You have to think to yourself, is that actually something from this realm, or is the doppelganger actually from the mirrored realm? The way it walks, the way it acts, the way that it mirrors everything to the left instead of directly on would suggest that it would come from the very first realm closest to ours, which would be the mirrored realm. This is science's take on it, but we can absolutely prove that there are at least, and I'm saying at least because Stephen Hawking could only prove 10 realms. But there are absolutely 10 realms. What the other realms hold, we really don't know.
We're still to find out what's actually there. I mean, Sarah asked me a question one day, just talking about the multi-realm, multiverse. We were in the car, right? And you asked me about ghosts. You got a typical city centre.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And Sarah asked me, do you think that, you get people walking about the city centre, going about their daily, bits and pieces. Do you think there's actually spirits walking about the same city centre?
But in a different realm.
And they're doing their own thing?
Well, absolutely. The multiverse theory, especially the mirrored theory on this matter, is, say, for instance, we're having this interview, right? Flip it around. It would be me interviewing you guys. The multiverse is a mirrored universe. So therefore, everything would be reversed. The laws of space and time would be reversed. And a lot of things that I believe people in the paranormal classify as maybe a full body apparition or a shadow. What they're seeing, I believe that it's actually a rip into the multiverse situation, which is where they have freedom to come and go into the multiverse realm of the mirrored universe. There's just too many accounts for it not to be logical.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think there's ever a time where, our realm and the mirror realm actually come in contact?
Absolutely, I do.
Over each other?
I'm sorry?
Excuse me. When they both, our realm and the mirror realm, do you think there's ever a time where they actually cross over each other?
I do. Well, we know for a fact, like, the body, the human body has scientific laws, correct? In other words, our body cannot walk through walls. Our body can't do certain things because we're governed by scientific law. But in the multiverse situation, it is energy. And I tell people all the time, because they call it the paranormal field. And see, this is the problem where science and the paranormal field are having a problem. It's not that we don't believe kind of in the same thing. It's simply that the terminology is hanging us up. Other words, what some people would classify as a, haunting, we classify as a memory trait. So it's basically the same thing. It's just different terminology. And I think that's where the problem is lying, is because nobody's willing to actually give way on their terminology. And scientists are the worst about it, because once we're like pit bulls on pork chops. When we get a terminology, we know we don't let go. And the paranormal field's kind of the same way. They've been taught that, a full body or a, disembodied voice, but it's actually the same thing that scientists are saying. It's just different terminology. So if we're governed, if our bodies are governed by the laws of science, after the human body passes away and the implosion of the human consciousness takes place into the atmosphere surrounding us, then we no longer have that boundary that we had when we had a flesh body, leaving us to be able to be more of an energy. And of course, first law of science, cannot kill, cannot recreate, or you cannot decimate or recreate or destroy energy. It can only transfer from one form to another. So at that point in time, energy connects to energy. So you're going to have people that, okay, and I'll just take it this way. Everybody out there, and this drives me crazy, everybody's like, it's a demonic. Probably not. If your human consciousness carries over into the atmosphere, if you were a grouchy old person, or if you were a grouchy mean person in life, your human consciousness is what you are. So if you're grouchy, you're going to be grouchy. If you're violent, you're going to be violent. That's your human consciousness. That's your personality imploding into the atmosphere. You just no longer have a body to tie you to that. If you're a practical joker, like we've all been in investigations where practical jokes happen. You know what I mean? They kind of tease us. Well, that's their personality trait. That's their human consciousness. And it drives me crazy that everybody's like, oh, it's a demon. It could just be somebody that's grouchy. Maybe they had a bad life.
We've said this so many times, Carol. There's, I know it's right in America, but over here there's quite a few teams jump on the demonic wagon.
Oh yeah, here too.
As I've said, I've always said that the only difference between us and spirit is that we have a body. That's it.
A vessel.
Exactly.
So,
That's exactly what it is. Well, people have to understand, and I'm really working hard to get more science-based into the paranormal. And the reason why is I truly believe that if paranormal teams can grasp the simple basics of energy and the M theories and things like that, then we have a real shot at being able to substantiate what they call the paranormal field. But until we get more science behind us, scientists and general public is not going to look at the paranormal as a scientifically proven theory.
do you think that'll ever happen? We'll get the paranormal field will get more.
I do. And the reason I think that's happening, and actually we're in the dawn of that right as we speak. So many people out there, when I first started this back in 2010, I mean, you would not believe, people called me crazy. I mean, it was bad. But now, because we have a newer generation of paranormal investigators, their minds are more open, and the more that science creeps into it, the more people are taking notice of it. So we have people now that are actually incorporating or attempting to incorporate science into the field, which is pushing us in a forward progress. It's going to take time, but anything science always does. But I do believe that this is the dawn of bringing science into the paranormal field.
As you say, you started back in 2010, people thought, crazy. But
oh yeah, I was called everything. I mean, yeah, oh yeah.
When you think about it, when it started investigating the part with paranormal investigations first started out, people probably thought the same thing. You know, if you say to a friend, "I'm going to sit in a graveyard for 4 hours and see if I can contact spirits," you probably think you're nuts. But
Well,
it's
absolutely.
going. Sorry,
I got it from both sides. I mean, I got it from the science side of life, because scientists, are adamant on their theories and opinions, and of course, the paranormal team was adamant on their theories and opinions. And here I was in the middle, and so yeah, I kind of got it from both sides. But luckily, with each day that passes, people are actually incorporating more science into the field of the paranormal, which warms my heart.
Mm-hmm.
That I want, before I leave this realm and go to the next, I want to see science embedded into the paranormal. That's my goal.
Well, hopefully you get your goal. But I totally agree. It's the paranormal field. When it first started, people thought, they're nuts, crazy.
Do they not still think that?
Well, a lot of people still do think that, but as time went on, it became more accepted. And as you say, the scientific side, it's a kind of, there's a new generation of investigators, coming about, and
Absolutely.
there's more doors open now than there was, say, maybe 20 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, 30 years ago, when I first started this field, there was a handful of paranormal investigators. There was Jay, Grant, Zaffis. There was only a handful. This was before paranormal ever hit TV.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we were looked at like the Addams family, basically. And it had come to where it is today. So everything takes time. And with this new generation, they're so smart. They are so smart. I mean, they're starting to incorporate artificial intelligence into the paranormal as well, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting there. It's just taking us a little longer than what we would have liked it to be.
It's just taking time. As you say, new things are getting introduced, and if you get back 20 years, probably nobody'd ever heard of, these apps, the Necrophonic app, etc.,
Okay.
which a lot of people use. So, who's to say in the next 10, 15 years, a lot more scientific stuff is going to be the Necrophonic is kind of the norm in investigation.
Yeah, we are actually using, I've actually been working the last 13 years. Well, coming up on 14 years, actually. We've been working on it for 14 years, but we do have a device, and we're actually in the final studies of it. It's called the malice frequency. Now, we know in science, when you have somebody that is, and they call themselves so many different things that I'm going to try to remember to cover all the names. If I don't, I apologize. Psychic, sensitive, intuitive, medium, that realm. And now we can absolutely prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, because the malice frequency works, that a lot of people that have those, except for intuitive. Now, everybody is intuitive. It's from the animal region of the brain. That is our fight or flight mechanism that sits in our human brain that tells us something's about to happen. That's a normal reaction. So everybody is sensitive, because if we weren't, let's face it, we'd have been eaten by the, Jurassic era a long time ago. So, that's why humans have survived, is that fight or flight. But the psychics and stuff, we can 100% prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that people that have psychic or mediums, if I missed out on one, I'm truly sorry. But what it is their right front lobe of their brain is damaged, whether it be from a car accident, whether it be from not getting enough oxygen in the womb, whether it be a head injury, whatever the case may be. So much like when you're blind, your hearing amps up, or when you're deaf, your sight amps up. It's the body's way of equaling stuff out. So when your right region of your brain is slowed down and the left region of your brain amps up to take up some of that slack, you get what we call that psychic, sensitive, whatever people want to classify it as. And we can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it does exist. It is actually a medical condition. But a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. A lot of without science, there's no paranormal people. Without science, there is no paranormal. People use scientific equipment to attempt to record or measure spirit activity, numerous photos, videos, EVPs, etc.
Well, that's true because you use a K2 meter to test the electromagnetic field.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about science in our universe, like there was something that was just released. We now know that the black hole, before we thought that the black hole made no sound because it sucked everything in. So there was absolutely no sound. Scientists just discovered there is a sound. Now, within your brain is thousands of binaural beats, right? Different ones, like some of them are used to relax you at night, the REM, the deep sleep, stuff like that. Well, when those beats or those frequencies actually connect with Mother Nature, whether it be birds, whether it be, because everything makes a noise on this planet, everything. It's the way, the human connection of picking up on it.
You're talking about noise. What's one question I did want to ask you? The scientific side. What's your thoughts on infrasound?
Actually, the alpha, I'm kind of on the fence on the alpha. And the reason why is because there is medical documentation that alpha can actually clear away clots in the brain. It can actually clear away a lot of things that the human body might hold. But at the same time, if you go past a certain hertz, otherwise, if you're playing it to where it's an amplified version of it, it could actually do harm to the human body. So I believe that whenever you're messing with the beats or the binaural beats or whatever, you have to be very careful to know what hertz goes with what sound, because you can actually do more damage than this.
I mean, I've spoke to people who reckon that their opinion. Obviously, we respect everybody's opinion, no matter what it is. That they say that infrasound could be responsible for, when you're out in investigations, some people feel nauseous, some people get a headache, some people feel tired. There's various, different things that individuals feel. And I've spoken to some people say, well, it's infrasound that's responsible for that. That's doing that. What do you think in that?
Well, I'm thinking that there's so many sounds out there, and this is what a lot of people in the paranormal don't take into account that scientists do. Okay, for instance, you go into a building, right? And even though there's an overhead wire, and we all know that that's going to set off a K2. Or there's old cloth wiring that is still here holding electric conductors within the wiring. That's going to set off the K2. Well, that same electrical wiring or that same, electrical pole is actually putting out sound. Now, some people are more prone to the sounds than others. Like you have people that are allergic to peanuts and some people, you know what I mean? It's different ways for the body to react. I believe that if you're going to do any type of investigation especially with beats or frequencies, I definitely think the gamma is one of the best ones to use, because the gamma is actually going to open you up. It's going to give you more of an open region. It's going to open your brain to receive new data. So I'm a big fan of gamma.
So, as a scientist, what's your opinion? You know, I've mentioned the necrophonic, which we do use, and we've had quite a lot of intelligent responses from it. You know, to whatever questions we've asked. But obviously, there's dozens and dozens of various apps out there now. You know,
Oh yeah.
what's your thoughts on all these different apps? Do you think they're worth their salt, or do you think it's a load of crap, basically?
Well, just like, and I'm not a fan, and I know I'm getting a lot of feedback on this. I am sure not the fan of the SLS, and I'll tell you why. The SLS is actually devised out of a video game situation. Now, anytime you devise something out of a video game situation, you're doing basically virtual reality. Now, is it something that is it a fun thing to use? Oh yeah, I love it that way. But I don't believe, like, radio frequencies, people don't understand. Whenever you use any type of radio frequencies, the hack shack, what we used to call the hack shack back in the day, which is the ghost box today, Netrophonic, you're playing off radio waves. Now, radio waves can go on. I mean, they don't end. They just go on and on and on and on. So with that being said, somebody could say something, for instance, and we've actually done a little test on this. It was a fun little test. But what we would do is we would take somebody from another state and we would have them on the same frequency. And they would say something just in their house and they would document it down. And we would end up with the exact same sentence on the Netrophonic or the Hack Shack or the Go, whatever you want to, whatever you're using. And that's because you're using different frequencies. And now don't get me wrong. I love to go on investigations. These are fun things for me. But whenever I go on an investigation, I strip it to bare minimum. I absolutely go science. Like back in the day, we did not use the K2s or, I think our deal was like bells on strings and baby powder or flour, But I always tell people the best piece of equipment you have ever is yourself. That's the best piece. So, I mean, I love them for the fun facts, but for the scientific facts, because the data can't be absolutely processed, I can't for 100% say, yes, this is scientifically proven. So therefore, that evidence has to be thrown out.
So there's still a question mark on it. I mean, okay, we've used the K2 and we've asked quite a few occasions for your spirit to make it go to yellow, and it's went to yellow and then back down, and then it's sat dormant, until we've maybe asked another question. Can you make that go to yellow? And it's went to yellow. Stuff like that. It's microphonic. We've asked questions and we've, intelligent.
I'm going to have to send you guys, I'm going to have to mail you out a copy of the Malice frequencies. Now, what the Malice does is it doesn't use, there's no word database to it. Nothing. So there's no way that a word can come through. You know what I mean? And it's not radio waves. It's actually, sorry, I had a snap in my house. It's actually frequencies off the human mind. So what it is we have gotten straight up answers where answers should not have been. And we can scientifically say, okay, there's something there because there is no word database for it to play off of. So therefore, it's either you projecting it into the atmosphere around you, or it is actually a voice that is carried through from human consciousness. I want to mail you a copy of the Mallet.
That's fine, don't you? Send it through. Laura's saying, I think we all have to remember it's virtually impossible to prove that something does not exist or doesn't exist. isn't that what drives us in the end?
Right. Well, and you know, I've had some people out there that I've had brand new teams send me evidence, and they don't have all the fancy equipment because they haven't been in the field a long time. And I'll tell you what, I've had them send me evidence that was just unbelievable. So I do believe that, as a matter of fact, I know for a fact that the human consciousness survives bodily death. I 100% know for a fact. So all we have to do is be able to scientifically prove it at this point in time. So what people call the paranormal, aka ghost, spirit, whatever they want to classify it as, because I don't take away from somebody's verbal wordage on what they want to classify it as. But if we can concrete prove this beyond a scientific fact, then we have a real shot at a lot of things. It opens so many doors. I do 100%. I know the dead come back. I have seen it with my own eyes. I didn't have any equipment. I know for a fact they come back. Being a mortician, I have seen it. So I know it does exist.
This is what I wanted to come on to. I know you're a mortician. I want to talk about that. The whole, you know, obviously you're an investigator as well, and you're a mortician, so you're dealing with you're dealing with the dead every day, basically. You know.
Yes.
How did that the mortician job come about? That side of things, and
when I first started to become a mortician, I actually was a body hauler. So I would go and pick up the deceased. Decided that, you know, I really loved doing it because I was able to be there to care for the person that had passed away. And, you know, I was able to give them the honor and the respect that they needed. And I was able to help the families of the loved ones. And being a mother of a murdered child myself, I wanted to be able to be there for those people because it's such a difficult time in life that people just, until it happens to you, just don't understand. So I wanted to be able to be there for both the victim and the family. So I went to school for death investigation, basic pathology, criminal profiling, decided that I did not want to work with the living. Did not want to work with the living. They were too crazy for me. So I switched and I ended up going to mortician school. And I was very, very lucky because the gentleman that I studied under, because you have to do your internship, was phenomenal. So I started out as a body hauler and moved into the coroner repairs and then moved into, of course, cremation and funeral. But I have seen things that can't be explained today.
Laura's got a question that could maybe tie in with what you just said. What's the strangest experience, both as a mortician and as an investigator?
Oh, I'll tell you. The craziest thing, well, two crazy things have happened to me. Actually, one's going to be coming out in October on Haunted Hospital. That was, I think, one of the craziest things that I've ever seen in my life. But the secondary one is it was the height of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic and the fentanyl pandemic. And so everybody was out and there was only 2 morticians working. And we literally, when people say that there weren't refrigerated trucks for bodies, I'm telling you there was. We literally had to bring in semis and hook refrigeration units up because we ran out of space. It was that bad, guys. So I'm telling you firsthand, yeah, it was that bad. We had an infant boy, and he had a very, very rare brain cancer, and he passed away at, I think he was almost a year. He was like a couple days shy of a year old. Now, when an autopsy is performed and the body is given back for the coroner repair for the viewing, you get the organs back in a bag, almost like a little white trash bag, and inside of it is, of course, the cat litter and the embalming fluid mix to preserve the organ.
Mm-hmm.
And she's carrying out, and he was tiny, you guys. He was very, very sick for a very, very long time. And whenever we have an infant, we always try to make sure that the infant is dressed nice after the coroner is done, and, you know, wrapped in a nice blanket. And we try to take very, very good care of that individual. She's holding this little boy in her arms, and he's tiny. He's not going to fit on my gurney. So we made a call to the fire department to have a car seat brought to us because there's no way he was fitting on that gurney. She was holding him, and now, mind you, I have the organs in my hand in a bag. This baby opened its eyes and cried, and I don't mean like a wham. I mean like a full-on hungry baby cry. Now, there's two problems with that. You can't make noises without your lungs. I had the lungs in my hand. She had the baby in her hand. At that point in time, I had literally dropped the organs. I thought she was going to throw the baby. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I refused to put the baby in the car to haul it back to haul him back. I'm sorry. To haul him back to the funeral home, because the only thing I kept thinking was, if this baby cries when he's in my car in a car seat, I'm wrecking my car. I was terrified, to tell you the God honest truth. I was terrified. I had left and I had made the EMTs bring the baby because I was not putting him in my car.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that happen. I have been physically attacked picking up at a morgue from the hospital when they had an inmate. And this is where I have a problem with people saying everything's a demon. We had an inmate come in that had gotten a fight in the jail, and he had gotten curb stomped, which is where he had his head stomped in. He had passed away upstairs. They brought him down to the morgue. We went to pick him up. Now, it was me and the coroner, because remember, we were short-handed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had him on the gurney. I was going to go down the 3 steps to get the paperwork signed, because you have to sign in, you have to sign out, and then you have to fingerprint whenever you haul a body. So I'm getting ready to go down the stairs, and the coroner said that he felt like this static electricity fly by him, almost like he stuck something in a light socket. Next thing I know, I felt the same static electricity on my back, and I was violently shoved down the stairs. Now, mind you, I ended up upstairs because it had bruised my legs and my arm up so badly that I ended up upstairs in the emergency room. So there's things that have happened to me being a mortician that I cannot explain.
How do you explain? I'm just going to. Rachel's asking, is there a background noise, or can anyone else hear a gentle woman's voice over the top of this chat?
Maybe we're
Okay, I'm going to give you a lot of this happens every time I do an interview. I actually have about 100 haunted items in my house, or should I say proclaimed haunted items, rescued items.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I come through, we always get either a children's voice, a woman's voice, or we get growls. I have come to ignore them, but it happens a lot of times. That happens.
So it's coming for you. There you go, Rachel's coming for Carol's side.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
So I mean, it's very gentle, a softly spoken woman.
Well, we do have, like I said, with me working at funeral homes, and I actually just picked up jobs as a hospice, which is we sit there with the individual till they pass. So I believe that when
You, you still there, Carol?
What one person paranormal or field would call the right one versus what science and medical field calls, you know, the death flash. Times I have absolutely noticed that I will go to move something and I get a strong smell of whatever, like they were like the last woman was, she had lavender things in her room, so her room smelled like lavender. And I've noticed that my house just recently smells a lot like lavender. But you have to think of it this way: when that implosion happens, correct, and it disperses through the atmosphere, you're going to get a little bit of that dispersion either on you or on your clothing or whatever the case may be, because when it disperses into the whole atmosphere. So I believe it's almost like a fingerprint left untouched.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, aye. It makes total sense. So, just get back to the mortician side. Have you ever? I mean, I've been in the hospital, when relatives have passed and I've stood, beside the bed, after they've passed away, and I've always had the feeling that they're not there. It's just an empty feeling. I suppose I would probably get it. Have you ever had, a deceased person in the morgue, and you've been standing there, doing your thing basically, and you felt that maybe that person's standing beside you?
Okay, now I know I'm not supposed to tell this story, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you just pieces of it. It's the one on Haunted Hospital, and it is coming up in October, you guys. It is actually season 4, episode 3. So keep your eye out on that. This is something that legitimately happened. I was, like I said, height of the corona. You guys have to understand, when you work in a funeral home or a hospital during the height of the coronavirus and the fentanyl, we were understaffed. We were overworked, understaffed. It was crazy. It was absolutely insanity. We had gotten this young gentleman in, and I'm not going to mention names, but we had gotten this young gentleman in that had actually been a fentanyl overdose. And I was working on him, getting him ready for his viewing. I was doing the Y incision. Getting his viewing, washing his hair, things like that. And I'm standing there and I hear from behind me, "I'm okay now." And I thought it was my coworker because, we were both so tired that we were just exhausted. So I turned around expecting to see her standing there.
Mm-hmm.
I turned around and the young gentleman that was on my table was standing directly behind me. Now, it wasn't an extremely scary thing. He wasn't like oh my gosh, this is terrifying. He was beautiful. I mean, I had never in my life seen anything this beautiful. It was almost like a clear silverish dust is the best way for me to describe it. And clouding him. And he was perfect. I mean, he was literally perfect. And my brain, even though it was legit, my brain, being the science part of me, is thinking, okay, you're overworked, you're overtired, you're starting to see things. I thought I was sleep deprived.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of tried to shake it off. I turned back around and the body had moved. Very, very heavy tables. You're not going to bump them and have a body move off of them. Trust me. And there's actually a lip around them because when we flush the organs out, or when we flush out the veins and stuff, it goes into a drain. So there's actually a ravine around it.
Mm-hmm.
This body was damn near off the table. Now, there's no way for that to happen. So, but I was just losing my mind. Honestly, I thought that, I had been overworked. I needed to go home. I needed to get some sleep. So I had taken the young man and I had put him back into the cooler and just thought, well, okay, I'm going to finish this tomorrow. So I come back in the morning. I'm seriously thinking, okay, I just need sleep. Either that or I need an MRI. One of the two. So I went and I put him back in the cooler. And when I came in the next morning, my coworker was there and she goes, hey, you forgot to put him back, except for she used his name. But don't worry, I put him back for you. And I looked at her and I said, the hell I did. I put him back. And she goes, well, don't worry. I put him back in the cooler. We walked into the embalming room and he was back on the embalming table. Back on the embalming table. We could not get out of that funeral home quick enough. Couldn't get out of there quick enough. So we take off out the closest doors, which was the chapel doors. Okay, and we're standing there looking at somebody. Now, she had funerals to do while I did the coroner repairs and I did the embalmings that day. Or the coroner repairs, So I was like, okay. So I had to go back in, and the whole time I'm sitting there thinking to myself, if this person comes off this table, I'm going to have a heart attack. So I go back in there and I was working with them and I decided, okay, I needed to do a cremation. So I went ahead and my nerves were shot to begin with. So I put him back in the cooler after I had him prepared for his funeral. And I hear this knock on the cooler door when I shut it. I'll tell you what, that was it. Nobody got cremated that day. I didn't do any more coroner repairs that day. I went home. Okay.
I think that would freak. Yeah, I mean, I'm not easily spooked. Nothing kind of freaks me out. We did an investigation Saturday night there, and with a door physically shut 3 times. This door was on a latch. It was latched back, and it something lifted the latch and the door shut, and we got kind of buzz out it. But I think a body getting in and out of the cooler and what have you. I think that would make anybody leave the building and take a step back and say, right, what's going on? And then hearing a wee knock at the door after you put them back in.
I did not go back to work that day. We were set up to do 3 cremations. I didn't even do the cremations that day. There was no way I was going back in that building. Just due to the fact that throughout the full 24-hour period, just the crazy things that took place, my brain just could not conceive it. So I wasn't going to put myself through all that mental stress. Mm-hmm. But that incident damn near ended my career. I have learned now that whenever I do work with any deceased individuals, whether it be body hauling or whether it be cremation or whether it be, coroner repair, I talk to them now. And I talk to them just like I'm talking to you and me. I tell them every step I'm taking. I make sure they know that I'm there to help them. Because people say the dead don't come back. And I'm sorry, the heck they don't. They definitely come back. And I'm a science-minded person. I'm not a person that is going to be, everything's a ghost. Mm-hmm. I'm very scientific. It takes a lot to convince me of these things. And I'm telling you, I can 100% say beyond a shadow of a doubt that when the human consciousness expels from the body at time of death, that it absolutely implodes into the atmosphere.
But that's, a lot of people think, death is death, that's it, end it, lights out. But if you, I know we've had, most of your team have all had a personal experience or something. that they cannot explain, or they've had a feeling that they can't explain. When you've had that kind of, thing happen, for certain, that there is something, through the door, basically. Hi, Michelle. No, as I said, there's too much evidence for the paranormal.
Oh, absolutely.
They just. I mean, my dad, bless him, he passed in 1995. He just didn't believe in it. He was, he passed away with cancer. But when he found out he had cancer,
Sorry to hear that.
thank you. When the doctors told him basically there's nothing we can do, we give it kind of 6 weeks, that, the usual kind of thing. And, I went up to the hospital, I seen him, and he was fine about it. He wasn't upset, he wasn't crying, his words to me were, "That's me, son, I'm buggered." That was it. That's exactly, I always remember the words, "That's me, I'm buggered." And I used to kid on him, I say, when you do pop off, Dad, you'll be back. You'll probably still come back and annoy me. And
well, if you think about it, the human is actually, I mean, we're energy. And so whether we move on to a multiverse, or whether our energy finds its way into a new host, whatever, there's so many beliefs out there, but whatever the case may be, we can absolutely say that when the body dies, the consciousness does not.
Mm-hmm.
So human consciousness, people call AKA ghost, spirit, whatever you want to label it as. So if science can prove that after bodily death, that energy carries over, that's proven that, the paranormal does in fact exist. We just don't have enough study on it at this point in time to say, yes, this is no longer a theory, but it is scientifically proven.
It's, how can life does go on, and Laura saying it sounds to me like either soft whispering or running.
The running water's the fish tank.
Right.
I mean, how many times have people whose loved ones have passed, have they all of a sudden felt that hand? Because I know when my son passed, I felt his hand on my shoulder at the time of death. I knew it. How many people, when their loved ones have passed, have felt them? That's energy connection. Energy is connected to energy. That's scientifically proven. So all these people that say, hey, I know they came back, I know they visited me, that can be scientifically proven because energy is connected to energy.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to answer this one. Michelle was one. Sorry, we don't put the link in the chat. We've had issues with that before, and we don't put the links into the chat. It's just our guest that's on. I remember you for being on with Drew last week, I think it was, after we covered the Samsley Witches. But apologies, hon, it's just our guest that we put on the panel. But we can arrange, if you want to come up another time on the panel, we can arrange that, no problem. I just say, I do believe our loved ones, they hang about, whether it's to keep an eye on us or the old, unfinished business scenario kind of thing. There could be 100 different reasons. It's not the fish tanks here. I know it sounds like this comes and goes, not constant. I think it's something in Carol's side water, or someone, I should say. But there is the old saying, and I've said it many times, that's my dad, he's still about. I know it's him, it's his, his smell, his sign, that's what he used to do, sort of thing. And I do believe that we can for, as long as we want, basically. Can you get me through? We're not on Instagram, dog, sorry.
Instagram's too complicated.
I forgot what I
Well,
was saying.
absolutely. Our bodies are, like I said in the beginning, our bodies are tethered to laws of science. Our consciousness is not. So I absolutely agree with you 100%.
So, speaking as a scientist, what's your theories on reincarnation? Now, I know there's all different thoughts on this, and no disrespect to any of them.
I actually, like I said, the terms in science versus the terms in the paranormal or religious are very different, but they do play the same words. I mean, they are the exact same. They're just different wording. Human consciousness, when it implodes into the atmosphere, I do absolutely believe energy is connected to energy. Other words, if you have somebody say that energy implodes into the atmosphere, it would make logical sense that energy could connect to a newborn or a child or whatever case you have at point. For instance, look at the organ donation. Okay. Now, the organs, we hear these stories all the time where somebody gets an organ from a deceased person. They may have hated, maybe it's an older guy that didn't like skateboarders or that didn't like the taste of music that the younger population likes. And all of a sudden, after his organ donation, he likes the music that the donor likes. He then knows how to skateboard. I truly believe that energy carries on. I know for a fact. So for me, I wouldn't call it, but it's basically the same thing. It's just different terminology in a different theory. So I absolutely do believe that it's feasible.
I suppose everything is feasible. It's just I know a lot of people have different beliefs on various different things. The reincarnation, I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on the reincarnation. Do we get a chance to come back again? I know that I spoke to people who believe that we can come each life that we come back to as another chance for us to perfect ourselves. Make ourselves better than we were in the previous life.
And we're not going to cover it on a live soon about famous stories of reincarnation.
We're going to cover it. But if that's true, how you need to ask yourself the question: if each life is a chance for us to better ourselves for the previous one, how many chances do you get?
I think
that is a great question, and I have asked that question like 10 million times. I wish I had the answer. I wish I even had a theory on that, which I do not. But that is a fascinating question because if you think about it, first law of science is energy cannot be recreated or destroyed, correct? So if we have thousands of babies being born every year and energy cannot be recreated or destroyed, how can we have new babies when energy cannot be recreated?
Exactly. So it does. I've often wondered that. How many bites of the cherry do you actually get, so to speak, before it's time's up?
Maybe you come to a purpose and you get so many chances to complete that.
I know that's a fascinating theory. I mean, that is fascinating. And now my brain is thinking that I want to figure that out. But my brain goes down these rabbit holes on science when people mention things. I'm like, that's a perfect theory,
But I give it the paranormal, I mean, everybody, not everybody, sorry, a lot of people are under the impression that it's, when you say paranormal, it's just a case of going to a graveyard, for example, and sitting,
Right.
you know, looking for ghosts. Right, that's a paranormal. End of. They don't actually realise just how many strings there is attached to the paranormal.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many science strings attached to the paranormal. It's crazy. I mean, we have dark matter attached to it. We have supernovas, black holes attached to it. We have energy trace attached to it. I mean, there are so many, the multiverse theory, there is so much that is scientifically attached to the paranormal. That's why you have parascientists and parapsychologists.
Mhm.
There's so many out there that science actually can, beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove life after death. We just are not at that stage. We're at the theory stage, and a lot of it is being proven. But science is not one of those things where you start something, you wake up the next day, and it's eureka. It takes years upon years upon years upon years. I mean, look at string theory. You know,
Mhm. Well, I mean,
look at the multiverses, black holes, supernovas.
as I say there, you know, look at the paranormal field. It's took, you know, decades for it to evolve into what it is now.
Absolutely. I think the first encounter was the 1600s.
Mhm.
So it is taken from the 1600s to now to even come to the point where it is at.
Yeah.
Just like any other field, it takes time. And a lot of people, I think, are more into the instant gratification part of it. And then you have the actual hardcore real investigators. I classify them differently. I classify the ghost hunters as people that are going to watch an episode of whichever great show is out there. And they're
Mhm.
going to go on eBay, buy a K2, run into an abandoned building. Okay, that's a ghost hunter. Now, the actual paranormal investigator is going to spend hours upon hours, and it's not cheap to do this. People think that it is cheap to do this. It is a very expensive thing to do, not to mention time consuming, not to mention, you really have to dig into the background. So it's not something that's just for the investigator, for the paranormal investigator. Some of them have cases and they last weeks just going over the evidence. So it is very time consuming, and it takes a while for anything to develop into a science aspect. Does that make sense?
If you look at you know, it's right there in the word investigator. If you take, you know, like the police, for instance, you know, they're investigating a crime. They need to look at every single aspect, and it can take weeks to, you know,
Correct.
maybe find the answer if they ever do find the answer. And it's the same with paranormal. You know, you can't just usually buy a K2, run it into a field, and say, right, oh, I found a ghost. That's it.
Right.
End of story. You know, it's not as simple as that. There's a, you know, you do need to look at every single aspect of, you know, the paranormal. And if you do get evidence, you need to kind of try and take that apart, even though it's your own evidence. You need to try and rip that apart, debunk it where possible, before you say, right, I can't explain this. We never ever state anything as paranormal. If we get a bit of evidence that we cannot explain or debunk, then we'll say, right, we can't explain this. Here it's here. What do you think? And we leave it open. You know.
Exactly. And then we have people nowadays that they see a TV show and they're like, oh, I can do that. But this is the thing. Entertainment is entertainment, and that's great. I actually help with some casting calls for a couple networks, and they're great people, and I like their TV shows. But at the same time, that's a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of this is 90% of the time, you're going to look like a crazy person sitting in the dark talking to yourself. You really will. But at the same time, you have to have the love to find out what the paranormal is. And I think that investigators that do that are our strongest allies. And that's because they take hours, hours and hours, if not days, trying to debunk their own captures, which is that is a true investigator.
You have to. I mean, we've had some, it sounds big-headed, it's not intended that way, but we've had some great captures, and an example is that door, the Saturday night's investigation, it says the door was actually on a latch, a hooked latch, and we were with another team called Spig, and 3 times, we've done it as a live, and we've got it all on the live. 3 times the latch was unhooked and the door swung shut. And we tried, we looked at that door. And one of the guys that were there, he's been there at this location for over 20 years. He says, I've never, ever seen that happen. And so you do need to, you stand there and you think, right, that's fantastic, that door shut, of its own accord, whatever. But let's take a step back and look at it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we can explain why that door shut, was it us? Was it
with our malice frequency, we actually have, and I teach people all the time. We actually are doing controlled studies this year on the malice. Now, mind you, it has taken 14 years for us to get the malice from step 1, our theory, to being provable. And at this point, we're in the realm of controlled studies, which means we have actually the lab at the college. And I tease people all the time. I tell them, yeah, we're the real Ghostbusters because our lab just happens to be in the basement of the college. I'm like, this is great. I'm the real Ghostbuster. Great. I've become the real Ghostbuster. But we actually go on to deserted islands. And I mean, they drop us off. They do not come back till the morning. It is just us. Because we want to take the human connection out of the study. And the reason why is because the human brain is so powerful and people do not understand this. Your brain is so powerful. I'm sorry, that's my shepherd. That you can literally project things onto the atmosphere surrounding us. I'm sorry, let me get this door closed. I don't know why she's barking all of a sudden.
It's all right.
Hang on. I'm so sorry about that.
That's fine. Her kitten gets in the way as well. She's actually been burrowing away down the side of me. We've been sitting talking.
But we're actually really excited to be able to go be trapped on island. I know that sounds weird too. But yeah, I truly believe that, and this is why FPI goes around, like we do a lot of conferences, a lot of Paracon. We don't go there for us, okay? We go there because my goal in this field is to teach everybody out there that actually wants to learn forensics in the paranormal field. I want to teach them how to do it. I do have my license. I did go to college for 5 years for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to teach them how to do it because I believe that if we have more science aspects in the paranormal field, we're going to get to the answers a lot quicker. Because if you only have 3 people or 4 people doing it, that's one thing. But if you have a group of people, an army doing it, it doesn't matter if the person doing it for 3 days catches the Holy Grail or me that's been doing it for 27 years catches the Holy Grail. It's still a step forward in what we're trying to prove. And so I firmly believe, and unfortunately, I do not believe that until all the cattiness stops, I don't believe you're going to get para-unity. I just don't. There's too many people out there that aren't interested in finding out what it is, but are interested in being on TV.
100%. They 2 points there, Carol. As you say about somebody getting a capture. We actually spoke about this the other night, I guess, and we're saying we can get a guy who's been in the field 20 years, you know, and then you got a guy who's been in the field 2 weeks. You know, the two of them go out. The guy who's been in the field for 20 years might get nothing, but the guy who's been doing it for 2 weeks might get, a fantastic capture. It's just the way, you know, and it leads me to say that, you know, this new guy's any better than the more experienced guy. I hate the word expert because there's no such thing as an expert, in my opinion. You can have more experience, you know, than anybody else, but they say this is what you say this new guy's any better than the other guy. He just had a lucky night, you know, or Spirit wanted to talk to him that night.
Right. Well,
for whatever
think of it
reason.
this way. Energy is connected to energy, correct? That's scientifically proven. Nobody can argue that. So, say for instance, you have somebody with the same personality trait, same energy, as the energy that's in that particular place. That energy is going to connect to that person because energy is attracted to energy. So therefore, you know, you get the chance to be able to have energy connection to energy. So you could be in it a day, you could be in it 30 years. It doesn't matter. And we as a field need to come together. We need to stop ripping each other apart for, you know, oh, I want to be this, or I want to be loved, or I want to be known, or, you know, because personally, I don't care if I'm known. I do my science and I'm perfectly okay with that. And we just need to stop ripping each other down, and we need to start building people up. All these rumors that most of the time you can't believe anything that's on the internet anyways. You have to be able to look at yourself and say, are you in this for the actual science part of it and to figure out what the paranormal is, or are you in this for the showboating? If you're in this for the showboating, it's going to get boring real quick.
2,000%. I know there's no such thing, 2,000%. You know, I've used 2,000%. We spoke of this so many times. You know, there's people out there, you know yourself, Carol, they're obsessed with getting views, followers, you know, likes, you know, all the rest of it. And that's not what it's about. We like to see our numbers, you know, we like to see our followers going up because it lets us know that we're doing stuff, you know, we've got content that people are enjoying seeing, basically, you know, and that we are going in the right kind of direction with what we're doing. But at the end of the day, we do it. We don't go and sit in a graveyard for 4 hours so that we can get, you know, 5,000 people watching us.
Yeah.
We go because it's what we love to do. You know. Hi, Jem Doll. Hope you're still in the mend. Jen, she's one half of Hectic Paranormal from Australia. It's her and Kate, but she's been down with COVID for the past week or so. She's been totally ill with it, so she's on the mend, which is a good thing. But to say,
my prayers sent out to her.
She's originally from Hull. I want to say Hull in England. She's originally from England, but she moved to Australia quite a few years ago. She's nuts. She's absolutely nuts. You know, so's her Kate, but in a good way. You know, totally good way. But no, I get what you see, Carol, about the para-unity and people are just in it because they want to be famous. They want a TV deal. Yeah. You know, and that,
you know, I don't need that because I've been on TV several times. I don't need the whole TV thing. I just want to do my science, prove the paranormal exists, and move on. You know,
that's it. I mean, I've said on a few lives, you know, and I swear that it's the truth. If, you know, for instance, Sky TV knocked on my front door tomorrow and says, we want you to do a 10-part series, you know, I would say no, because that's not why I'm in it for. You know, we enjoy what we do. And
do this, but I do have a casting call at 5:30 I need to make.
Oh, that's fine. We can cut it off here, and I can get you back. That's no, because I do like talking about your TV stuff, etc. So we can wind it up here just now. That's no a problem. I just noticed the time as well. So, but I'll do a wee second, Carol, after we come off. So, major thanks to Carol for coming in tonight. We will get her back to finish off our conversation.
And I have to say,
FPI, not FBI.
I have to say it one more time. I love your accent.
I love it when you say that. I really do. Thank you very much. That's great, though. You know, and we will talk again. That's fine, Jim. Though that's fine. You can always watch us back, honey. But big thanks for Carol for coming in. Says FPI Unsolved. You go into Facebook, whatever you'll find them there. And thanks to everybody that came in to chat and put your comments and questions. As always, much appreciated. As Jim's going to watch.
Mad respect to you guys.
Sorry, though.
Mad respect to you guys.
Oh, thank you very much. See, right back to you as well. So we'll cut it off there, and we will have Carol back for part 2, shall we say? Say part 2. Because she's a busy lady. So we'll say good night just now, or good afternoon, whatever, good morning, and take care, folks, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon.
Bye.
Take care now. Bye. Bye.
Bye,